Good evening, Westeros. We are back with After the Fyre. 1 second, I just realized that was not in the right place. Whoop, 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 whoop. This is our chat show where we talk about our very own Song of Ice and Fire campaign, After the Fyre. We are talking about Season 2, Episode 2, our own Fortunes Made today, which is the house words of House Rowan. But also I feel like it was just a really good title for this episode because there was a lot of discussion about making our own destinies, our own fortunes, our own futures this week. But before we do dig into the events of last week's episode, I'll just go around and introduce everybody. To my bottom left, we have the wonderful Jason. Hi, Jason.
Hey, it's very good to see you. I just realized that my windscreen, no, what is that called? I don't know. Pop shield is in the frame. So yeah, that's behind the scenes. But above the scenes, no, it's great to be here. So glad to be a part of After the Fyre. It's always a pleasure. And yeah, I can't wait to talk about how everything went. I think it went splendiferously. I didn't find anything to be amiss or disconcerting. I thought it was a very good episode.
Kill Bill klaxons just in the background there. I could see it on Don's face. And just give us a reminder of which of the many disaster children of House Greenmont you play.
I'm playing the most disastrous of the children, Symon. Symon is a maester, was a maester, is technically, it's complicated. He's working on it. And it's really just a good time to sort of drop in. If you haven't seen season 1 and you're completely confused as to Symon's characterization, as he is, a lot of stuff clarified this episode, I think. We'll get into it.
And Don, how are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm so good. No, thanks for having me. I'm very excited to chat about the episode. It was one of my favorites we've done so far, one of my favorite sessions. All joking aside, I loved all the stuff with Symon. We'll get into that later. But I play Oliver, not technically a disaster Greenmont child, but somewhat of a disaster all on his own, in his own way. And Sir Oliver, Knight of Dorne. If you haven't watched the show, you should. Why are you here? But yeah, I'm very excited to chat about the episode.
And I am Susie. This is my channel. Hello. And I play the sweetest, most purest, and bestest child of the Greenmonts, Lady Miria Greenmont, who is currently on a little Donish adventure of her own with her god's father. God knows what's going to happen to her because everything just happens around her, and she's just like, "This is fine. I can work with this. Maybe." Poor kid has had a lot of trauma in a very short space of time. I see you there in chat, Frax. I see you. We'll get onto that later. But, so, before we head into the episode, did any of us have any expectations or sort of anything we were thinking about going into this episode? Because I know this one in particular, we all spoke with Sam a fair bit about beforehand about things we'd like to see. And I know, Don, you had some concerns heading into House Yronwood after the end of the previous episode.
Yeah, I did not know what to expect. I expected when we got to House Yronwood for it to be a much colder, immediately life-threatening situation for us. That's not what it turned out to be. So I was kind of thrown aback. I didn't know what to expect. Mm-hmm. We did chat with Sam ahead of time. There were a couple of things we wanted to address, but a lot of it was just getting a couple of moments between Miria and Oliver to actually like chat, to catch up, because it had been so long and so much had happened. Mm-hmm. And I thought we got a really good opportunity to do that. We had that dance scene at the beginning.
Yeah, we did. And so for those that don't know, it's been like 2 or 3 years since Miria and Oliver has seen each other at all, because he after the Battle of the Redgrass, was too wounded to really return to the house, and then Miria was taken away to be a ward really early on. So basically, he went off to war, and she never saw him again. So it was really important to me that we did have those reconnecting moments, because it would be so important for our characters being as close as they are. What about you, Jason? Was there anything going into this episode that you were like, any sort of feelings you had about it?
Well, given the way that I've sort of constructed Symon's character right off at the beginning, he was always meant to be, or I had mistakenly made him basically a information gatherer, a broker of sorts. So with the most recent scenes that I was sort of coordinating with Sam on, I just told him, look, I just want to see if this does anything. And if it doesn't, then I'll figure it out from there. A lot of it was in the vein of intelligence gathering, but that intrigue that happened with Lady Rowan at dinner, I was not anticipating it to go anywhere in particular. You know, Symon is a information gatherer. He's not exactly a persuasive talker. So, given that I was kind of anticipating a little bit of not failure, but at least, you know, lack of real rapport, I think that that was able to sort of modify the scene in a little bit more favorably, or at least in a way that I could sort of get affect the story without, you know, having to roll anything, which you know, it sounds very bad, but it at the end of the day, as has been, I think, sort of hammered on with the entire structure of the system, failure doesn't necessarily indicate that the door is closed.
Mhm.
It just redefines the parameters of success. And overall, yeah, I thought Symon was pretty successful. But yeah.
Oh, he sure succeeded in doing something, let me tell you. But, okay, so that will actually bring us on to, because what we like to do on After the Fyre is we go through scene by scene, and we talk to whoever was involved, and then everybody has their own little opinions, and we all have a little good chat, and we take comments from the chat. So if, chat, you have any comments or questions or anything you would like to say today, please do chuck it in there, because we do read them. And if there are any questions, what we usually do is we save them to the end, and we'll answer them all at once, or if it's relevant to what we're talking about right then and there, we'll answer them then and there. But scene 1 was Symon in Highgarden on his way to his dinner with Lady Rowan. Going up into the Green Hand Tower at House Tyrell, he saw an interesting procession of Lord Leo Tyrell and his small council leaving his chambers to do something. How did you feel in that moment when Lord Tyrell poured out of his room with Grainer Oakheart, his mother, Lord Hightower, and Desmera, and they were all sort of like chatting and joking? And
as soon as I saw that Lord Tyrell was sort of at the front of this procession, I was like, oh, no. I have got to get out of here. Like there was a gremlin part of my mind that was like, no, go talk to him. Go say hi. Go say hi to Desmera, and then say, like, incidentally say hi to the Lord Tyrell. Introduce yourself. The better half of me said, no, let's get up these stairs as quickly as possible and not probably get arrested. So luckily that side went out, and yeah, I had a very tense stealth roll where there was that split second of like, did she hear me? No, that couldn't happen. It's perfectly fine. Just keep walking and just ignore the possibilities. Yeah.
Desmera, being everybody's wife, who everybody was rooting for, was in that moment like, did she see him? Does she see him? I feel like she knew you were there, but she was like, huh, and carried on walking, which is why later on she sent those mummers to that room. But there was a very interesting thing actually in that glimpse. We got a a much closer look at how things are run at Highgarden. So Lord Tyrell and Gwaine Oakhart were like laughing and joking like frat boys, you know, and they're both like getting to middle age, and they're like pushing each other around and getting drunk and like not giving a shit. While in the background, it's actually Lord Leo Tyrell's mother, Elenya, who is running the show with Lord Hightower, who's the Master of Coin, and Desmera, who is the Master of Whispers. And they're the ones running the shit show, like behind him, and he's too busy talking about getting wasted and fighting his friends. It was really, I mean, it was incredibly on brand for us, because I don't know whether this has happened subconsciously or consciously enough that Sam has relented to me, Charlie, and Virginia going, yeah, but what about the women though, Sam? Because it seems like all the women in Westeros are the ones that really run the show, and the dudes are the kind of just there like, gonna get drunk and fight some men.
I would like there to be a male character that's somehow like holds on to a true modicum of power, because I don't think we've come across a house really where there's a male figure at its head that does shit effectively. Like Tyrell is run by frat boys. Oakhart, you could make maybe a argument for Oakhart because, you know, Lord, the actual old Oak, seems like a little bit in tune, but, you know, his wife's no pushover.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no contest between who is running the shit between Alistair and Mara. Like, sorry.
Yeah.
Same with Yronwood. Same with, I would assume, probably the Martells. Like, it's just very interesting that these power dynamics have played out in such a way. I really do appreciate it. And again, I think it would be interesting to see if the men even recognize that or realize that, or to have, you know, somebody who does, because I don't even think Symon really appreciates it either. It's just one of those things where it's like, you're the person that I'm dealing with. Who cares what or who you are?
Mm-hmm.
So, well, Symon cares a lot, but that's another story.
I feel like Matt there in the chat put a good point there, though, that it's the theme not just of this game, but of the books. Because there's a lot of women running the show in the actual books, too. And I mean,
Very true.
It's kind of the same in history, too. As we've spoken about before and After the Fyre and you know, just chatting in history, women were historically the ones that ran the households. They were the ones that dealt with all the affairs, whilst the dudes were like, I'm going to go over here, I'm going to wage war over there, and then I'm going to go have a drink with this guy and shore up some relationships here. That the women usually did most of the fucking hard work. But yeah, so it's not necessarily just a thing with our game, but you know, I'm into it. Strong
Very
women.
True, very true.
I'm all for it. I'm not ever going to complain about that.
Especially when they could murder Symon now. They're in a position to murder Symon.
Oh.
Yeah, no, now it's...
All of Westeros is in a fucking position to murder Symon.
Yeah.
But they were having a very interesting conversation. A lord in the Reach is seeking dispensation to ask their permission to ask the king to have his bastard legitimized. And actually, I do have a short clip to play for everybody that Charlie made for us because she noticed something while this conversation was going down. So I'm just going to hop over there to that clip real quick, and we will be right back in a moment.
Lords of the Reach are chivalrous. It can be assumed that at least one of them would be stupid enough to have such pity on a bastard.
And bear in mind, we just fought a war because some idiot legitimized all their bastards on their deathbed.
I'm with this game. I'm so sorry.
Okay, and we are back.
Oh, did you catch that? Yeah. I feel like such an asshole half the time in this game. Next backup character that I make when Symon dies, because he's gonna die at some point. Like, I'm just gonna make him like either affably stupid or just so just easy to understand. None of this trying to get a maestership revoked or anything.
Mm-hmm. But it does pose like a really interesting question about the role of bastards at this time period, because you know, as Sam mentioned there, we've just fought a war because some fucker legitimized all of his bastards on his deathbed. Well, not just some fucker, the king, you know? He caused a war because he went, yeah, all right, you're all mine. Bit of a problem. And then we see Daira with her spy network, who are comprised of bastards and handmaids and young ladies. Then you got Bitter Steel across the sea and Essos in Tyrosh, who... he is one of the great bastards of the king who, you know, is trying to come back and forge Blackfyre to Electric Boogaloo. So it's a really interesting time period for that kind of dynamic. And the fact that a lord who, as we found out through Symon's role, in his knowledge role, Lord Bulwer was a Blackfyre loyalist who fought at Redgrass Field and claimed he killed 40 men at the battle. So, like, not only was he there, he was a fucking badass when he was there.
There's like some discrepancy too. Like every time he tells the story, it's more men. Every time he tells the story of how many men he killed, it keeps increasing.
I mean, you would though, wouldn't you? Really?
Right,
like,
of course.
Who's gonna check?
I feel like after 4 or 5, then you're in the clear. Just up the number.
Yeah, but we don't have PolitiFact to like rate these claims. Like we can't have somebody going back to the Redgrass digging up bones and like, okay, wait a minute, was this was how he died? You claim? Interesting. No. So I mean, make it 50. Make it 60.
So long as he keeps his story straight and doesn't tell a different number to the same person, he's golden. Like, you know what I mean? But Lord Bulwer is seeking to legitimize his son, as he has no heir. Now, we actually never saw the conclusion of that. We just saw the discussion. And I think Lady Olenna said that they would. And she said they would grant him permission to do this.
Yes. But
we'll have to see how that plays out. And once he does petition the king, if he is granted permission to legitimize his son, that would be a really interesting thing to see. Really interesting question. But after that... Oh, that was when you arrived after your little sneaky. After considering following them to see what the rest of the conversation was, you headed up to Lady Rowan's quarters and were introduced, kind of, a little bit, because nobody still really knows who you are at that point. Because Jesus Christ, just tell them your name. Oh, fucking... Way to make yourself seem sketchy as shit, by the way. Like... I have no idea why Lady Rowan was like, come to my quarters, because not only did you scream at her in the gardens, you didn't fucking tell her your name for like so long.
I'm convinced it was pure pity. I'm convinced. I don't see why either. I wish I could give you an answer. I don't have one. I just don't. I just really think that he's such a pathetic display that just like, oh no, you have to come inside now. Like, just here, we'll shove you by a fire and just like, don't move. We'll get you some tea or something.
Do you know what it's kind of like? It's kind of like when something really dramatic is happening and it's really embarrassing and you're like, come, everybody can see you. Stop. You know, it's not about you, but it's happening in close proximity to you, so you're also like embarrassed by proxy and you want to make it stop. But okay, so you're invited in, you sat down, there's a feast of, I was like, auroch and potato and leek soup and bread and sweet rolls and cheese, and I'm hungry now. And seated at this table, there is Lady Rowan, looking absolutely beautiful and resplendent in her golden dress with her lovely blonde hair. Seated next to her was her knight, Sir Oz something.
I thought Osmond? It started with an M. I can't remember, but
I feel like it's an Oz sound.
The same knight that I screamed at.
Yeah, the same knight you screamed at and should have been stabbed by.
Yeah.
Seated across from her was Lord Webber in a really shoddy, nasty-ass tunic, and he was already drunk. which I feel like was Sam's proxy in this scene. We then had what was it, Lady Crane? Was that that was the only other guest, right? There was just a couple of people.
I believe there was also a night drunk.
No, it was Weber.
Oh,
Weber was drunk.
Right.
Her knight, Rowan, and then Marcia's mum. Which, by the way, Charlie couldn't be there for that part of the episode. So after the episode, I messaged her to catch her up quickly on what was happening. I was like, oh, Symon had an intrigue with Lady Rowan at dinner. There was Lord Weber. She was there. Her knight was there. Oh, and your mum. And she put, my mother, in capitals and immediately called me.
Yeah.
I didn't even have time to read it before it started ringing. I'm like, hello. And she's like,
I think I've apologized enough for that.
Oh, we're not even there yet. We're not even at that bit yet. So it starts with Lady Rowan being like, so how can I help you? You seem to be someone in need of help. What can I do? You approached me. You came to me in the gardens and you said you needed help. How can I help you? And Simon's like, I'm not going to tell you. And he basically, I'm not going to tell you I need help. And then he tells a big old lie, Jason. Big old lie.
Tell a fucking, excuse me. We shall see as the evidence plays out that he simply merely maybe presented a situation that could be construed as false. Not necessarily a lie.
Don, you were there in that very, very first episode where Symon threw off his chains, insulted the Grand Maester, and basically told him to, shove it up his ass. Is that true?
Yes, to my recollection, Judge.
And so, if Symon then later on said that he was privately dismissed from his maestership, would that be construed as a falsehood?
To the best of my recollection.
Objection. God damn it.
No, he at the very least he attempted to manipulate to infer that something happened that didn't happen. At the very least.
Mm-hmm.
It did happen, just maybe not in the order that Symon described. Such a shithead. He's such a bastard. I just.
So here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
In his possession, 100% would do the same.
Yeah, like
100% would lie out of my fucking ass and be like, look, I was told to leave. My family was in dire straits, and I spoke and I appealed with compassion to the Grand Maester, and he said, go. Like, I would 100% do the same. Like, so yeah. I'm not, when I'm like, why? I'm not at you for making those plays.
I know, but also it's just like, just tell the truth. That's going to help somehow, maybe. And if it doesn't, then you're already screwed, man. Let's just... It's just.
I have a question about this, Jason.
Oh, God.
Do you think that if you had just told the truth, like just gone on and gone, you went in there like, hi, I'm Symon Greenmont. Look, here's the situation. Do you think it would have even been an intrigue, or do you think it would have just been a pleasant dinner with a nice young lady who might have been able to help you?
I don't think so. I don't, because the standards for chivalry, for honor, for vows in particular within the Reach are understood to be like, you take this on for blood. If you just say, hey, I'm Symon Greenmont, by the way, I threw away the Maester's chain because XYZ, no matter the reason, it would still be viewed as something where it's like, time out. Take that back a couple of steps. You throw away what now? And there would have to be a whole sort of justification that I think would have to be played out.
See, I disagree there, because we know for a fact that Lady Rowan has already gone above and beyond what would be expected of a young lady in the Reach just to secure her house. She stood before the court and begged to invoke a Dornish right, which would be huge for her, because she's in the North Marches. She's not even on the border with Dorne, so she didn't have that familiarity down there. So for her to be there and say, look, if they can do that in Dorne, and I'm the only last Rowan, maybe I think she would have a lot of sympathy for Symon, especially in a house in such dire straits. She would understand that Symon was doing his best. I think if he'd have gone, look, I fucked it. but I need help unfucking it. I think she would be like, I will see what I can do. You have a friend in me. But as we've seen, Symon is terribly, terribly paranoid. So even when he's reaching out for friends, he sees enemies, right? So I think that's why he's being so cautious and so hesitant. But in the other hand, it's really, really backfiring on him because nobody wants to trust him because he won't tell them anything.
But if you tell them nothing, then they can't use it against you.
But then if you tell them nothing, they can't help you. So you're stood treading water, and someday he's going to run out of energy, as it were, in this treading water analogy. He's going to drown. And there'll be no one there to offer him a hand.
And the thing is, I think the reason I think he doubted Rowan in particular, even though he was the one to reach out, was because when he started articulating these same sorts of concerns that he had, they weren't reverberating. It was sort of like tossing out this idea and then not getting anything back. So in his mind, it's like, okay, well, wait a minute. Have I misinterpreted this situation? Do you really think that, or what's going on here? And at that point, I think, because again of that paranoia that you had described, it paralyzed him from acting in a way that's like, no, it's probably just nervousness. You need to be forthright, because forthrightness in this particular situation means admitting, oh, by the way, I'm an oath breaker from a house that betrayed the entire Reach. Do you mind helping me? Like, he's so obsessed with optics that I don't think he's really even considered another viewpoint that could be taken. Like, he's only been stuck in his own head. And gods know what that's like.
So how hungry would he have to become to start considering a different viewpoint? Because he's also homeless at this point, right?
Virtually, yeah. He's basically.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Do you feel like that? Do you feel like that's like weighed down on him? That being humbled like that has changed his perspective at all? I'm wondering.
From an analytical standpoint, he's been able to study the underworld for a time, and though he understands the mechanics of what he's doing or what he's exploring through his ventures, I think, especially at the end of this episode, which is what I'll want to get into, I think that is when you see him sort of hit that rock bottom and think, oh, I just don't, it's either A, I do not have this as well as I thought I did, or I can't keep lying. And again, getting to the end of the episode, we'll sort of talk more about that, because there was a surprise appearance at the end that I think will solidly shatter whatever like semblance of togetherness he had.
Oh boy, yeah, 100% agree. But this was a very interesting conversation that Symon was having that involved a fair bit of prop work, as he pulled out that letter that he'd received in the previous episode, which we now to understand to come from Auntie Lana, which was throwing everybody under the bus for that little bit of blood magic that did happen at the house. He didn't tell them immediately what it was, just flashed it and said that he worked for Desmera. Which, again, big old lie. Big lie.
He was affiliated with Desmera at one point in time.
He had like 3 conversations with her.
Coordinated on a scheme with her. That's technically... Look, if you work at someplace for a week, you work there. Right? You're the guy that showed up for 3 shifts, decided you hated the job, walked out, didn't tell the boss, and now puts it on his CV as if he worked there for 3 years. That's the reason I said I hate this character. No, Symon is wonderful to occupy. But God damn. When you really do it, when you look at it, that's really how it be, huh?
But I mean, that was a really interesting gambit. I mean, because it did it was like, oh, I have a position here at court. I'm not just some vagrant that wandered in. But also, you did just affiliate yourself with the Master of Whispers, who's known to be a bit of a shady bitch. So don't know if that either worked in your favor too, you know?
I don't know.
I see it as Symon being like, I'm relevant here, you know? He's trying to, like, when you try and bluff your way through a situation, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, if you go to an event, you're like, oh yeah, I know that guy, I know the bartender, and you sort of try and wander in. You know, that was kind of his like in for like, I know court, I should be here, that kind of but oof. And then you started trying to incite them against Lord Peak, which was met with a sort of like, I don't know, that's felt like quite a cool reaction. It wasn't like they were like, yeah, fuck Peak. They were like,
I just, it's very frustrating because there was that sort of sense of they're constrained either by their position, either by what they're operating on, like the information that they're operating on.
mm-hmm.
They're confined to a certain set of actions that they can only exercise in extreme circumstances, which I think further frustrates the problem because, again, Symon views Lord Peak as one of the biggest problems within the Reach presently, not only because he's using Fox Hollow as a base, but because of what he could potentially lead into.
Mm-hmm.
If this person who has lost everything, damn near everything, gains power, what reprisals will be visited upon those who put him in that position? Like, you can't have a peace that is too overbearing. And it just seems like everybody forgot that lesson or, you know, ignored it and is now subsequently dealing with a situation where, oh no, this person that we punished now has an army and we're just drinking away and talking about how we are very good at hitting men with sticks on horses.
Mm-hmm.
The scope of it, I will say, I think has changed Symon's thinking. Like he's very much a doomsayer. Like he's very much a catastrophizer in this scenario.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, for sure. And I feel like the people there are kind of waiting to see what happens with Peak, because Peak was allowed to do that. He was allowed to stand up in court, say, fuck your taxes, I'm off down south, peace. And so he went and nobody stopped him. Lord Tyrell let that happen. So at court, I think people would be like, okay, we'll see how this plays out. Let's not hedge bets one way or the other, especially in the wake of the rebellion. Because at that point in the rebellion, people were, you know, they put their money on who they believed in strongly. And I think there's a caution now amongst people and who they're going to back, because they've learned such harsh lessons from the first rebellion. But yeah, I could feel Symon's frustration just build in that scene, because they weren't immediately being like, yeah, I'm with you, fuck Peak. You know, this guy's a dick. He's trying to incite a war, blah, blah, blah. And I could feel it. But we cut away from Symon and his very awkward dinner to across the mountains in Dawn at Castle Yronwood, and we had a post-dinner scene of Miria and Oliver in the main hall at Castle Yronwood having a dancing lesson. And Oliver's parents were there, but they were like at the other end of the room, and there was a traveling musician who was playing us some music. It wasn't the right kind of music, but it was close enough. And Miria was teaching Oliver the dances she learnt at Summer Hall, and they just had a really nice moment together. And I was so happy that they could just have this little moment of happiness before it went really sad later on.
Yeah, I liked it a lot, and it ties into our backstory to something that I think, you know, we probably wrote it on the Wikia for our house. It's somewhere in there, but it's definitely something we've talked about, this idea that Oliver taught all of the Greenmont children to one extent or another, some of them writing, some of them fighting. He tried to teach them all about Dornish culture and Dornish music and Dornish dancing, because House Greenmont and House Ironwood, they're not new allies. They've been allies for hundreds of years. And the situation has changed over the course of their relationship, where now Dorne is part of the Seven Kingdoms. Now Dorne is actually becoming more powerful within the Targaryen regime. But Dorne is not unified in this time. There's a definite split, just like there is with the Northerners and Dorne, between people who follow the Martells, the ruling house of Dorne, and people who believe that Dorne should still be independent. And so to him, anytime you have colonial power come in and change your culture, which is what the Martells and their ancestors did when they came to Dorne, and now what you're seeing happen with the Seven Kingdoms annexing Dorne, there's always a threat that you're going to lose what's individualistic about your culture. So for Oliver, it's always been important for him to try to relay those old customs to the Greenmonts, because they're the closest thing to Dorne of any of the other Northerners. They are right there on the border. They've been less antagonistic towards the Dornish men on the border than other houses of the Reach. And so, yeah, anyways, but in the scene, we got to dance, and that's something, we don't get a lot of downtime like that in this campaign.
No, yeah.
It was really, really nice. And I really like to see Miri, after all she's gone through, she actually gets a moment that's something more like who she was, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, definitely in that moment, as she was dancing with Oliver, like, I feel like she forgot everything that was happening, and she was that little girl again, just like twirling around in the halls at Fox Hollow, and she could just be happy for like 10 minutes and not have to think about, oh my god, I'm probably wanted by the crown, and all these terrible things have happened. My dad's dead, and like my brother's quit the Citadel, and oh my god, everything is terrible. And as they're dancing, they begin to chat, because like they don't, I imagine, like, once they got back to House Ironwood, they probably didn't have that much time to chat, because Miria was like, dirty child, go get her cleaned up and dressed and sorted out, and Oliver would have been, also looking after himself and, resting after their journeys. So it was like a good chance for them to chat. And Oliver, this was in Matt's summary of the episode, he put it really cutely. He was like, Oliver is ever the honorable gentleman asking his god's daughter permission to marry her stepmother, because he discussed the betrothal, and Miria's reaction was maybe a little bit colder than he might have expected. It's a bit like, she's not entirely sold on the concept just yet.
And I don't know personally, like me as a player or Oliver, he doesn't really know how Miria thinks of Lady Marcia, who's now running House Greenmont. 3 years ago, he didn't know Marcia. He went off to war. Miria became a ward, and he's only gotten to know Marcia since becoming wounded, and Marcia took care of his wounds and took care of Lord Lucas's wounds before he died. So a lot of the scene when I was playing Oliver, not just with the Marcia business, but her views on the world and politics and what's happened with her, Oliver was very interested to see what kind of person Miri is growing up to be. What's her perspectives on the world?
I think
that was my favorite part.
One thing about this is Miria she's quite savvy for a 13-year-old kid. She knows the game, and she knows all about, forging of alliances and how that can be used via marriage to like annex people and to take control of things. And it's come up before with other conversations we've had. Miria is quite skeptical about marriage. She's quite skeptical about her role in future marriage. She is very much, I don't want to be some lord's little lady wife. I don't want that. I'm not going to be there sat ignored in the corner or told to go do my embroidery. That's not me. And so marriage in general for Miria is a bit of a like, I'm not sure I'm into this, but she loves Marcia. She loves Oliver. She knows Oliver is a good man, and that he loves the house, he loves her, he loves the family, and that she trusts that he's not marrying Marcia to steal Greenmont. And so her hesitation is less in the fact that she doesn't want this marriage to happen. It's just the fact that she's just marriage questionable in general.
I think there's another Dornish culture thing that's really interesting, and I don't know how anything's going to play out. And neither does Oliver. But in the Dornish culture, when a man and a woman of noble houses marry, the man can join the woman's house or vice versa. It's not like the northern cultures where it's always patriarchy. And bastards are generally much more accepted in Dorne. There's a number of very, very different lineage cultures in Dorne that, since both House Yronwood and House Greenmont are right on the border there, I think create a lot of possibilities for different outcomes. In the current situation, I think in Oliver's mind, being flexible might be the best approach.
Yeah, for sure. As we've discovered, then things at House Ironwood might be a bit more complex than we'd originally thought. So after the talk about the wedding, Miria, they begin dancing again, and Miria lets slip about Harris, and she's instantly mortified because Oliver is like, "Oh, a boy," and she's like, "Shut up, shut up," and they have this really, like, it's a really cute moment again, like, where there's a sense of normalcy. Miria likes a boy, and somebody, you know, an adult figure of hers that she respects and loves is like, "Oh yeah," and she's mortified. But then Oliver asks, you know, he's a ward at Summerhall, right? And then it all just comes crashing down for Miria. From this point onwards, Miria's mood just nosedives because she is instantly reminded of Summerhall. And then they talk, and she says how worried she is for them back there, because if they even employed half of what they did to find the spy at Summerhall to find out where Blackmont and Miria have gone, those kids have gone through a horrible, horrible time. Even if they were just sat in a room and being shouted at, right? They're like kids. That's traumatic and terrible enough as it is. So Miria has all these nightmare scenarios playing in her head as well, because her imagination's running wild. As far as she knows, they could have got the fucking Boltons down to flay him. Do you know what I mean? Anything could have happened to him. And she does. She has a huge crush on Harris. So she's terrified. And he asks, you know, like, did anybody ever lay a hand on you? And she's like, no, but they were fucking horrible, and it was just a nasty environment to live in and stuff like that. So again, mood. Then Oliver does a very, very cool thing. And he's like, there's a disease from across the sea. And I could see Jason fucking losing it at the bottom, like...
I can't do this.
But he has a point. They have come over. They have abused their power. They're torturing kids, man.
Oh, right, because Blackmont didn't ever do that or condone it. Yeah, no, totally the Targaryens' fault.
Actually, Blackmont wasn't fully on board with torturing kids.
He wasn't fully on board with torturing one kid.
No, he actually did say in the conversation that Lord Willard was the one that was pushing for the poison in the snake, and he wasn't into that. He was there to just question them.
Uh-huh. And obviously questioning entailed no drugging or other form of coercion, correct? Yeah, let's believe Blackmont, the most trustworthy person in all the Reach, who just became a bandit king, lest we forget.
I don't think we have to pick Blackmont or Targaryen.
Yeah.
Plenty of time to burn them all to the ground.
I mean, let's be real, right? It's Game of Thrones. Nobody's 100% good. Everybody's kind of low-key terrible in their own way. But Oliver's speech about these people abusing their power and hurting people that rely on them and they're supposed to be in the protection of them really lit a fire in Miria, because she's like, no way when I'm older and I'm running the show is this ever going to happen on my watch. You know, she's like in the Game of Thrones show where Oberyn Martell is like, we don't hurt little girls in Dawn. You know what I mean? He has this code of ethics that he sticks to. And part of Miria is like, yeah, that's fucked. I'm not gonna abuse the people under my protection. And so that did give her a little like, oof, boost. And I think the longer she's spending with Oliver, the more she sees his side of why he went to war. And especially growing up at Summerhall, well, spending those years at Summerhall, she could definitely see that too. Because being a ward is not the worst thing in the world. It's also not great. You are still a prisoner. You are still under constant threat of, your family fucks up, you're gone. And you might ever not know why, but somebody could come pull you from your bed at night and you will be dead. And it's a horrible environment to grow up in. So she's definitely coming round to the anti-Targaryen side, and it's lighting a little fire in her. And she's gonna be a little revolutionary, I think.
In the books, the real ward that you spend the most time with is Theon. And even though the Starks treat him so well, the psychological strain of being a prisoner, even a well-treated, noble prisoner, you can see how that affects his character. I mean, that is being a prisoner still. And over a period of time, a long period of time, you don't even know how it might affect you, how you view your personal relationships, trust. I think that's a really interesting thing about Miria. And I think with Lord Lukos gone, Oliver, he got exiled by his family because they weren't willing to piss off the Martells when he was a young man. And that really, over time, was immediate bitterness became him forming his ideas about how the world should be. And with Lord Lukos gone, who saw the world in a somewhat similar way to Oliver, Miria doesn't have a father, and Oliver has an opportunity. He's never been a father, not truly to, try to teach or to protect or do all those things. And he might not make a lot of, there's definitely some questionable decisions he's already made in their very short period of time together, but they do all fit within, that point of view.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like Oliver definitely sees and respects what Miria has got going on, right? He definitely can see something in her, and he's like, all right, yeah, I'm going to guide this. I'm not going to try and shoehorn her into a role, right? He's not immediately gone, okay, you're back. You're getting married to this guy. See you later. He's like, I see you. I see what you're talking about. And we're going to make that happen. We're going to, yeah. That's definitely part of the fabled Monday session that we still haven't fully talked about, but that definitely did come up. The dance was then interrupted oh man, this scene broke my heart, right? The dancing and the music stops as they have this really serious discussion. Miria's mood is in the fucking toilet, and Lord Ironwood, Papa Ironwood, begins applauding and starts saying that, look at Christopher, isn't he fantastic? Like, Christopher. And my heart just immediately was like, oh no. Papa Ironwood's got a touch of the old dementia. And it's really sad. It's really, really sad. But it does explain everything that we've seen so far from House Ironwood. It explains the welcome. It explains why Mama Ironwood is apparently running the show and why she might be a bit frazzled, a bit cold, a bit harsh, because as almost as long as I can remember, my mum has worked with people with dementia, and their families, like the stuff these people go through, seeing your loved one just deteriorate like that, it does a number on you. It's a really horrible, tragic thing to experience. So I can understand why, partly why Mama Ironwood is the way she is, because her husband is there, but he's going,
Mm-hmm. He's there, but he's not there.
Yeah.
In a sense, and it's very interesting that this dynamic has been introduced, because when you first saw him, you thought, oh, well, maybe something happened where his heart was changed or softened in some manner. But now that it's come to light that there is this real this real burden that the family has to now carry, where this person is gradually being lost, it's like, oh no, like, how are we supposed to proceed? And I think it even gives a little insight into why, perhaps, or how Horatio was able to persuade the Martells into saying that, hey, your ancient enemies are currently in a particularly vulnerable position. I'm the heir. You usually solve things through marriage. Chuck a Martell my way. We'll be fine. And yeah, to even see how the mother, because do we have a name for Mama Ironwood? Like, what is her name?
Her name is Helena.
Helena. Like, to see Helena's very cold treatment of both of you is so eye-opening to the real sort of scars that this family bears from Oliver's actions, which is very not I wouldn't say antithetical to his character. I would say almost it informed him. Like, these younger mistakes were from a different man, and now coming back after all this time, it's like, oh, I just can't waltz in here and be with my family. There's something amiss.
Mm-hmm.
So how did Oliver have any sort of immediate reactions to the fact that his father was suffering from dementia, and that, you know, the sort of dichotomy between the warm welcome and now Helena's very, very chill response?
Yeah, so I think Oliver was surprised by his father's warmth. And in his mind and my mind, that first like gut reaction was, you know, we get old and we regret the things we've done in the past. Now, he could have written Oliver, he could have reached out at any point over the past, I think it's like, I think it's like 33 years or something like that. It's been a while. And he didn't. So, you know, pride and a lot of things. So I think Oliver is at the start halfway between thinking that he's in a viper's nest and they're laying a trap for him, and half thinking that maybe his father does regret what came to pass. In Oliver's mind, he is not apologetic about what happened, which is, I think we've touched on it before, but just to recap, the son, the Lord Christopher Ironwood. And Christopher Ironwood was challenged in a duel by a Martell prince. And Christopher was not a fighter. He was an artist. But honor and the bad blood between the families encouraged him to accept this duel, thinking that he would probably get his ass kicked and, you know, take one on the nose, but at least he would stand up for his house and then go on about his life. Martell Prince killed him in the duel. He died. And so Oliver, being the warrior of the family and a much angrier version of himself as a young man, especially towards the Martells, challenged the Martell Prince. They dueled. Oliver killed the prince. And rather than deal with the political ramifications of that, Otto, his father, exiled him. At the time, Oliver was closer with his mother, Helena. So when he returned, it was both a surprise to see his father embrace him, but also an equal surprise to see his mother completely shut him out, which is exactly what happened when we started that conversation. She wasn't focused. When we sat down and we started chatting, she wasn't even acknowledging Oliver. Mm-hmm. She was focusing both of her guns right on Myria the entire time.
Yes, she was. And let me tell you, Mama Ironwood is no joke. She is scary.
She's a boss fight.
I finished that intrigue with 2 composure.
I had 3.
Like, Myria's will rank is 4, so she's pretty good, but damn, Mama Ironwood is a heavy hitter. But yeah, as Don was saying there, she was very cold and distant to Oliver. She just barely even recognized he was there. Focused straight on Miria, and she's like, okay, tell me what happened. Tell me everything that happened. And she is very, I don't know, it seems like she's contemplating what's being said, and Miria's being, for the most part, entirely truthful. She admits the bit where Daera was the captured spy, and that Daera is now currently stood like 3 feet away from her. But she tells the whole thing about how traumatic that night of her kidnapping was, and how scared she was, and how terrible things were at Summerhall, what they're probably doing to her friends right now. And Helena is, she's listening, she's considering, but she still seems kind of like, I don't know, that she's kind of still reserved about everything, that she's still not even spurred onto action from that.
It almost seemed like she was accusing Miria of being in the wrong, like being responsible for everything.
That's super the vibe I was getting, like it was like, well, part of this is your fault. And Miria's like, how is it my fault? But then Oliver starts like chiming in, right? And starts trying to like distract the attention away from his mother.
Yeah, I had and this is part mechanical and part role play, but I've wanted to try to use some tactics that I haven't used before, or we haven't gotten to use a lot of, and intrigues. And there's a lot of different actions in Game of Thrones system and in the Song of Ice and Fire system that you can use in intrigues. And I thought I had a really good strategy going into this. I was like, I know exactly where I can hit her. It's going to soften up basically the intrigue version of her armor class, so that the two of us combined will just steamroll her. And what I didn't expect was that Sam designed Helena different than I've seen him design other intrigue nobles before, in that she had a very high deception score. And that deception score is not only like what protected her against some of the tactics we were trying to use, but it also made her completely untrustworthy. As soon as you know that the character you're talking to is, can lie with the best of them. Even though Oliver doesn't know that about his mother. Me, Don, the player, I'm just hearing, again, it's the Kill Bill sirens in the back of my head.
Yeah. I mean, when it was popping up in chat and she's like, oh, that must have been so terrible for you, child. Tell me what happened. And it's like, deception. I'm like, Sam?
Mm-hmm.
Sam? What is this?
Me?
Yeah.
Press the wrong button.
But then she starts dropping things like, she said that Makar's men have already been here looking for her, which at that time I was like, oh no. But then I was like, wait, why would Makar's men go to Ironwood to look for Miria? That makes no sense. Why? And so that was like, hang on a second. And I don't know if that twigged for Miria either. That could maybe potentially. But then she also said that it was Horatio that had incited his father, and he was the one commanding the armies. And it just makes me wonder, how much does Helena know about what's going on? What is she hiding?
I think she's hiding a lot. And here's and not to like make everybody more tinfoily, but any number of the things that were said in this encounter could be partly true, entirely true, or not true at all. Maker could have never been there. Maker could have been there, but for a different reason. Maker could have been there, and she could have known where Miria was because they were in the Red Mountains. They do have really good scouts at House Ironwood, so they could have spied Blackmont with Miria at some point in the mountains. And she did tell Maker. She could have been the one to incite the armies, and not Horatio. Because here's where I get a little bit fuzzy. If Horatio is so pro Blackfyre, and House Ironwood did fight on Blackfyre's side, but they were a little more reserved. They weren't quite as involved as they had been in previous Civil War kind of situations. And if Horatio was pro Blackfyre, then why was Horatio so anti Blackfyre when he and Oliver squared off at the tournament? And why is Horatio now married to a Martell? So, like somebody, it could be Horatio is scheming and lying. It could be Helena is scheming and lying. Most likely, in my mind, is that they are doing it together.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely what I was thinking, that Helena and Horatio are in it together. And I feel like she 100% knows that, or even orchestrated that marriage to the Martell. And Oliver being back is now inconvenient. Oliver being back and with a child is also extra inconvenient. And I don't know what she's going to do. She did say in the intrigue that she would not have given Miria up. Can't trust her. Don't know. She probably would have been like, here, have her. Tied her up in a bow. There you go.
We must eat the child. Ha
Yep. Put in a catapult, eat her all the way back to Summerhall.
And to her own granddaughter as well.
Tinfoil. But there was a point where we sort of cracked her a bit, and Oliver goes in with the that he's back because he's doing this because there's nothing he wouldn't do for his family, and that he's back here because he's that kind of man now. He's a good, honorable man, and he is here and he is fighting for those his family. Miria is his family. These are my family. And Mama Ironwood kind of, she does crack a bit. She's got tears in her eyes, and Oliver is like reaching out, putting a hand on her, and she doesn't pull away. And Miria is also like, look, I feel exactly the same. Oliver is family to me. I would do anything for him. I will pay this favor back tenfold. I will make him proud. I'll make House Ironwood proud. I will do anything. Please help me. And she doesn't seem as taken with that, but there's definitely that moment with her and Oliver where there's an emotional breakthrough a little bit there.
It's the first time she pays attention to him too. Like and when she does, like she does a very good mama guilt trip. But after that, she's left kind of vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And she mentions that Lord Ironwood fell into a Great Depression when Oliver was exiled and all these things. And then you go in for the kill. And you're like, just give me one last chance, Mama. I swear, I will make you proud. I will be the man that I can be. Give me that one last chance. And you, bam, send it home, and she breaks. So
I'm really glad that I used my experience points to get better at social encounters with Oliver, because he's been involved a lot more of those than he has in combat encounters. And so that helped. But beyond the mechanics of what was basically a boss fight, it took both of us everything we had to win that intrigue. That was the closest, and I don't want to say more, but I would say that's the closest Oliver has been to being deceptive so far. It wasn't that he was lying to his mom, but he might have been doing a little bit of Symon, right? He was going for what he thought would be effective versus, everything that's true. And I think I think he wouldn't have made that move. He wouldn't have taken that route if she hadn't actually opened up to him the moment before. She kind of made that possible.
Yeah, for sure.
She's still really cold though at the end.
Yeah.
Even though we won.
Yeah, so like everybody at this table is crying by this point because Miria's just relived that, like, the most traumatic night of her life, so she's still dealing with that and crying. Oliver's like crying like, Mum, please, and she's like, son. Everybody's crying, and she agrees to lend the forces to Oliver, but still a little bit icy there. And we cut away from there back to Highgarden, back to the dinner in progress. Lord Webber got even more in his cups and just peaced out. Finally, after about 6 hours with Lady Rowan in total, Symon introduces himself, good and proper, says, "Hi, I'm Symon." I've finally given you my name. He gives this really impassioned speech, this really impassioned loyalist speech. throwing Tyrell, Desmera, and Peak right under the fucking carriage. And ends with like, in the name of King Daemon II, first of his name, of the Andals and all that.
King of the Andals, the Roy the First Men. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
all that deal. And he gets like nothing in response. He
Nothing.
gets nothing.
Just that was the nuclear option. Like I didn't have anything else. I literally had to switch back between like the Discord to figure out my argument, because that was it. That was it at that point. Like as soon as that failed, I was like, okay, yeah, no, I yield and get the fuck out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Just run. Because if there is nothing that these people who have the power that Symon does not, who have the ability to act, if they cannot even agree to even tangentially stifle the efforts of Lord Peak, what the fuck am I doing here? Like,
I think partially this was down to the nature of it being a tabletop RPG.
yeah.
You delivered some incredible roleplay. Sam gave you everything he could to reward that roleplay to make it successful. But at the end of the day, it went down to the dice. And unfortunately, sometimes the dice are just going to fuck you. And it sucks because that was such a good fucking speech. And even though, you know, I hate the Tyrells, I hate the Targaryens, low-key, anti-loyalists.
Budding
revolutionary. Give me my beret. Yeah. It was an amazing speech, and it does suck, but it was a good moment for Symon, I think, because he laid it all out there, and wasn't enough. But in classic Symon style, one thing didn't work, so fucking burn it down, salt the earth. He immediately went, guess I've had too much fucking wine. Bye, bitches. Oh, by the way, Lady Crane, your daughter did blood magic.
Have fun. Bye.
Peace. And he was out. And I was just...
I thanked Lady Rowan for the meal.
You did
I think I was quite courteous.
Mm-hmm.
Just letting you know, hey, by the way, your daughter did some blood magic. Hope you don't mind. Gonna take my leave. So glad to see you all here. Yeah. Sorry for wasting your time. Bye, everybody.
So, let's just refer to Matt's notes here from that scene. Item 15. And I feel like that was an expression mirrored by everyone. And I mean, I was like literally head in my hands. I was like, why have you done this? Don just goes, fuck. And Sam is like, okay, as he's processing what's just happened and trying to think of what Lady Crane's reaction would be, what the consequences of that would be. Sam goes on this whole journey.
Hey, I needed to get her to Fox Hollow. I think she might have a reason to visit. You know, just to stop by, say hi, see what's going on, make sure everybody's okay, you know.
What Symon did there was he hired somebody to go douse Fox Hollow in petrol. And then he walked by with a cigarette. He took a long drag, stared at the petrol house, and went and lit that fucker on fire. Because let me tell you right now, that's literally setting Fox Hollow on fire.
Well, I mean, as far as I understand, it's kindling because Peak is there and doing something, ? Prisoners are dying. You know, I think that Lady Marcia just needs some family around her. She's already lost Miria. Oliver is not there anymore. Symon doesn't know this, but I think that it's really just an invitation. Hey, Ma, sorry to hear about your recent court troubles. By the way, did some blood magic. Hope you don't mind. Oh, and by the way, Grandma totally approved of it.
So here's the thing that I don't think Jason knew at the time, and Symon certainly doesn't know, but Marcia and her mother do not get on at all. They hate each other. Marzia's mother hates her because Marzia is not what Marzia's mother wanted in a daughter. And so at the earliest chance she got, she shipped Marzia off down to get married, which is why she stayed at Fox Hollow for so long before actually getting married to Lan, or then Lucas eventually. So you've just given her, like, the golden gun. But not only that, it throws, Grandma Crane under the bus too.
Oh yeah.
So this
For
is
sure.
This is two noble houses that are gonna go up in flames because of this one move.
Well,
But
I mean, they better keep it a secret, because if Desmara knows, then that's just going to be a rough time for
I
everybody.
think for me, the most important bit about that scene was, to me, it showed that Symon's priorities is not House Greenmont, it's himself. He only cares about House Greenmont if he's gonna be the one running the show, because he had to have known that this letter would incite something. And it would irrevocably damage Marzia and the babies, which coincidentally are the biggest barrier that he has to, the second biggest barrier to reclaiming his home. Wouldn't it be terrible if they were just out of the way?
Well, it's interesting that you view it as such, given that I only told Lady Crane. I whispered it to her.
Mm-hmm.
That information is hers and hers alone. What she decides to do with it is her decision.
You can't pass the buck like that.
I certainly can. I did everything in my power to make sure that I could maybe get them on my side a little bit. They wouldn't budge. Sure, you don't need me on your team. Fine, you're cheerleaders. Go ahead, have some fun. By the way, here's this bomb. Go and take it somewhere else. Leave it out of my court. So, yeah, I think that Symon was really just chomping at the bit, because he knew he could not tell Desmara, because that would damn Greenmont. He understood that Lady Rowan maybe not, has no skin in the game, but Lady Crane, even though he may not understand the exact dynamics between Mama Crane and Marzia, you still gotta understand, when family does something, you do everything in your power to help them. And I think Symon is playing off of that hope that Lady Crane will go and help. He doesn't care how the help is going to be received or administered. He's just glad that somebody's fucking listening. At the same time, I don't know really if he cares for the house in its current state. So, I mean, it's very interesting to sort of have that off of his chest. He doesn't need to do anything with the information except tell the right people at the right time. And, I think after being, coolly received, after, giving such an impassioned speech, I think it might have been a right time to just sort of crack that open and have the shrapnel blow in somebody else's face for once.
Your thoughts, Don? You went through a little facial journey there.
I feel like I feel like what Jason is, I feel like everything you just said, Jason, is what Symon would say. And Symon has proven that his forthrightness is situational and flexible. It felt to me that you were ready to take the steps to become king of the ashes of Fox Hollow as Symon, which I think is super interesting. I think it's really, really compelling. And of course, Symon still has to deal with his whole technically I should be a maester situation, which is tricky. And there are a lot of moving pieces in play and a lot of people that want to kill Symon, but you kind of just started the Civil War. Symon just kind of started the Civil War. I thought it was probably going to be us.
Yeah, right?
But it was you.
I mean, you get this missive that says, hey, by the way, the person who's in charge of your father's house did some blood magic. This was a bombshell. And I think that really, with it being kept to House Crane, what matters more than even Symon giving the information is what they do with it. Because Lady Crane can full on say, nope, fuck my daughter. Nope. And Grandma, you stay down there too. To hell with you. I'm just going back. But yeah, there are multiple ways that this could go.
Did Symon consider that letter was forged to manipulate him?
He did. And I think that he probably... Okay, here's how I can definitely sort of spin it. The thing is, obviously there's the thought that maybe Desmera wrote it. Somehow she learned the Greenmont cipher. Somehow something happened to where maybe somebody else wrote this to somehow get him to act. That being the case, there's kind of this two option things, or this dichotomy that emerges. If it's true, then Symon has just informed that, has just informed Marcia's mother, hey, you got shit to worry about, even beyond Lord Peak. I was just trying to be nice and get you to react to the real problem that I see. But if this is true, yeah, you're screwed. If it is a point where, yeah, no, this was written to manipulate Symon and this was all fabricated, I don't think Symon much cared, because the consequences of the action to now act on that information don't rest with him. Like it's pleading for him to come back home, but he is pretty damn sure that if he tries to even breathe outside of Highgarden, it'll be one of his last breaths. Like there's really this rampant paranoia that I think by shifting that information to somebody else, he can just wipe his hands clean and say, hey, this is what I heard. Oh, and Desmera might know. Bye. Leaves. Exit stage right. But, and it really does go back to something that Charlie told me, which was that Symon doesn't need to do anything with the information. He can be having information in and of itself is a way that a person can be a kingmaker. So when Symon was like, look, I can do these things for you. Just help me be there when you make kings. And they said nothing? Oh, you don't care. Perfectly fine enough. Thanks for the meal. Sorry for wasting your time. Oh, by the way, Lady Crane leaves. I just truly think that there was that momentary thought of, yeah, this could be fake, but they don't know that.
I just love how this must have seemed from like Lady Rowan's perspective, right? This vagrant ass looking dude comes up and screams at her in a garden. She's like, okay, all right, chill. We'll go have a dinner. I'll bring some friends. Just please stop shouting at me. Takes him to this dinner. Takes like 3 hours to tell her his name and what he wants.
She knew my name. Now let's hang on. Let's at least be charitable. She at least knew my name.
Okay.
She didn't know who the fuck I was. That's what took 3 hours.
Okay, so the first course, he doesn't say anything. He's just like, food. Oh my god, food. I've not had food in so long. Second course is like, sup, I'm Symon. You all know my story. And they're all like, no, we don't actually. Could you tell us? And he's like, nope.
Moving swiftly on.
How can I help you? I don't know. But have you heard about how much I love King Daemon II? And I hate Lord Peak. Have you heard how much these things are true? Also, I work with Desmera. Good friend of mine. Love her to bits. Right? Imagine how that looks to these people. And then imagine, right, after you leave, Lady Crane has had this bombshell dropped on her and you just fucking peace out. What is she gonna do? Sat there in that room. After everybody just goes, What was that?
To hell with it.
I mean, I love it, right? I think it stands out as one of the best moments of the show entirely.
No.
Because it was such a good, like, oh my god moment. it was one of those. It was one of those Tyrion shooting Tywin on the toilet moments. It was like, what? Did that just... And then it has consequences going down the line. See, I'm good tired. After that, Symon went out to find out... My favorite thing, okay. Symon makes this big speech, throws Tyrell, Peake, Desmera under the bus, and then he goes out to find out what people think of these people. Like, he didn't find out the temperature of the room before he made his statement.
Apologies. You've taken me by surprise. I'm very happy to see you.
I'm muted. Rip. Thank you for that raid, Hollow. So Symon makes his big speech, has his really awkward dinner, drops the bombshell, and then goes to find out what people think of Peake and of all the things that are happening. Then he's like, I know what. Is Peake just doing this because he's broke? Or is he doing this for some other reason? Or is the brokenness? I want to go check their financial records. Let's see what's going on here. So he goes to the Maester's Tower, which is also one of my favorite scenes. Because Simon's like, oh hey, I'm with Desmera and she sent me to come look for some documents. And the Maester's like, oh well, usually Desmera leaves a donation. And Simon's like, I got you, fam. Here's 2 groats.
Here's 20 hay pennies. Go buy yourself a fucking snack, kid. Leave me alone.
It's 2 fucking groats. That is like, I don't think you can buy a loaf of bread with that. And you just drop it in the Maester's hand. But then, in the peak of like ultimate comedy, you get up the stairs and you're like, I'm looking for this specific thing. And you're like, there's 2 more of those waiting for you if you get me where I need to be. And I'm like, oh, he's made 4 groats. Oh my god, he's gonna retire to the Bahamas. He's done. What a bribe. What a history. Just...
Hey, the fucking Maester took it hook, line, and sinker. I don't mind. Like...
It slew me. And me and Don, I noticed during that, we were just pissing ourselves laughing because the idea that this Maester was bribed with 4 groats in total was hilarious.
This guy handles the literal like functioning of the household in terms of like messages and documents and
it was so funny. But yeah, you attempt to dig through all the various files in the Maester's Tower, which turned out to be just a big old mess.
Big mistake.
The dude doesn't know what filing is.
This is a Maester of the Citadel, and you don't even have like a basic system in place.
Now he's just like, I'll just put this here, put that there, and that goes there. And so with your extremely good research roll, it ended up where you spent all night in this tower because you got locked in there by the Maester.
It was 15. It's not a bad roll under normal circumstances.
Did you actually find the information you were looking for?
Hell no. I didn't get shit. I got nothing because the DC was something like 21.
That's right. Yeah.
And it was like, well,
so Simon's just kind of like in this tower, locked in, like, I don't know what to do now. So he digs around, finds a knife, which immediately I'm like, oh god, he's armed. Excellent. And then he finds a vial of poison.
No, not just poison. Fucking widow's blood. Which, okay, for anybody watching, like, to say that it's a terrible, terrible thing is just the understatement of the goddamn century. This is a poison specifically designed to shut down the endocrine and, like, digestion systems. Like, literally, it is meant to kill somebody with their own poisons. I think this was even mentioned in Oberyn Martell's like voiceover of poisons for like one of the specials of Game of Thrones. Like he literally mentions that the person drowns in their own poison. It's like, excuse me, why is this person who has no goddamn filing system in place suddenly interested in keeping a vial of one of the most vicious poisons in the realm. I just, again, it was that it was that being locked in an office for like too many hours and just like brain baked, like,
What?
whoa, back up. Just,
What?
yeah. So I
That
don't,
clip where you're like, who hurt you?
who hurt you? It's just an honest question. Like,
But hey, eventually the doors were unlocked and you were let out. Made your way out into Highgarden. You left the knife, took the poison.
I stabbed it in the back of the door. It's like, be more cautious. Like, next time, give a little bit of an announcement when you're fucking leaving.
And Symon went out into Highgarden, having dropped bombshells left and right, and now has a vial of like the worst substance you could probably have on his person. And we cut back to Castle Yronwood. Miria is walking in the gardens with Daemon, who has definitely taken on a sort of bodyguard role since arriving at Yronwood and ever since Vulture's Roost. And they're sort of like idly chatting and walking and just enjoying the day when Miria is like, hey, Daemon, you know how you used to be a spy? How did you get messages out of places? Because I might need to do that. And Daemon's like, oh boy, okay. What? And Miria's like, well, look, here's the thing. When leaving Vulture's Roost, she had one last embrace with her uncle. And he asked her to do something for him. And she felt honor bound to do that for him. He asked her to get a message to his family to warn them about what would be coming for them once people find out what he did. And he wanted her to tell them where he is and that when it was safe to do so, they should join him. So Miria asked Daemon how she could go about doing that. And Daemon's like, stop talking. Let me do it. There's such a thing called plausible deniability. And Maria's like, yeah, but what if you get caught? And she's like, I only got caught once. And I'm like, oh, I like her. And she agrees to do so. But as they're having this conversation, Daemon's like, this is a bit ridiculous. This man captured you, was complicit in your torture, kidnapped you, dragged you across the mountains, and had you half starved to death. Why? And Maria's like, I can't explain it to you. Like, there's something that she felt a debt to Blackmont because he got her out of Summerhall. Like, he got her out. Ultimately, through his actions, she was reunited with Oliver. So, in her weird traumatic logic, it was ultimately a good thing. The path there was crap, but the ending result was good. So she's like, I gotta do this. And she asked Daemon, she's like, what are you getting out of being around me? What do you see in me? Why I have this debt to my uncle because of what he did, but I've done nothing for you. Why are you hanging around with me? And Daemon basically just responds that women like you and I are not meant for normal daily life. We're meant for something greater. And she's like, I see something in you and I want to teach you how to get that. I can teach you to be a bit more canny than others. She even kind of throws Oliver under the bus a bit. She's like, you're God's father. Yeah, he loves you. And he might want you to be a little lady, or he might be able to teach you how to fight, but he can't teach you what I can teach you. And Miria's like, all right, okay. I see what you... All right. And Miria then asks, what do you want from payment? And Daemon's like, just political protection, please. Just let me hang around with you. Don't send me away and we good. So they come to this sort of agreement, and it's not something they'd really talked about before. They just sort of gravitated toward each other at Vulture's Roost. And then when they left, Daemon came with Miria. And they'd never really addressed it. So it was a good conversation for them to be like, okay, what is the deal here? But they are rudely interrupted by shitty guards that dislike Daemon, as she is from the Stormlands, and we're in Dawn. And not only are we in Dawn, but we're in like old Dawn, where they don't take kindly to, you know, those Northerners in here. And one of them punches her in the back of the neck, like from behind. It is the scummiest move. Fisticuffs ensue. Daemon kicks some ass. She gets her ass kicked. Miria, yet again. Okay, so here's a little behind the scenes. On the next turn, if we'd still come around to Miria on the next turn, she would have like slapped one of them. Miria was ready to like, but as is the case with Miria, every single time I'm planning on stepping in and doing some violence, the conflict ends. It's happened every time.
That just means you have to do it earlier. We can't get Clash of Kids if you keep, stifling yourself and stifling your sensibilities.
Look, well, if what I have in mind comes to fruition, Miria might be a bit more useful in fights. We'll see. But yeah, so Miria, like, while Daemon is punching these boys, Miria's like, you stop this right now. And she's like, this woman is under the protection of Lord Oliver Ironwood. And she like stresses Lord, like, he's your boss. Stop this. And it just completely doesn't touch them at all. They don't react to her. And I feel like this was a point for Miria where she's like, she has a realization that she can talk the talk all she wants. She can stamp her feet. She can invoke a lord's name. Some people, that's not ever going to have an effect. And she is powerless there. And somebody who she had just vowed to protect is having the shit kicked out of her. And she can't do anything to stop it. And I think that's partly, especially with that earlier conversation that Miria and Oliver had, where Miria's like, no one under my protection is ever going to get hurt. Seeing somebody close to her getting the shit kicked out of her is definitely, again, lit that fire in Miria, which is why she is so Mardy, so grumpy at the end of that session. She has got a little face on her the whole time because she is furious that this would happen in a place where she's supposed to be safe, right? She is furious. Yeah, so hey, well-trained troops, huh?
I mean, so one of the things I got to do before the season began was I got to create House Ironwood, which was a lot of fun. I'd had to miss out on our session 0 initially, so I missed a lot of the I missed a good portion of the creation of House Greenmont. Mm-hmm. So I didn't get to see all that system in place. So I know that at least statistically, they are very well-trained troops at House Ironwood. And I think it's interesting too, because House Ironwood there's a couple of things that I think are interesting. I'm not sure that they know who Daemon is.
Yeah.
Just that she's kind of a northerner who's there with Oliver and Miria. But Daemon was a major component to the Blackfyre Rebellion's, spy campaign, more or less. She was pro Blackfyre, just like House Ironwood. At one point, their interests were aligned. The sort of like I feel like we saw a moment that reminded me of like small town racism. That's what that felt like.
Yeah, for sure.
And whether or not that attitude's prevalent in the rest of the army, I don't know. I really don't. And I don't know if House Ironwood's feelings towards House Greenmont and that children of House Greenmont has also changed for some reason. Horatio is a bad dude, and he could have had a lot of influence over the current disposition of the army. Things in the past 30 years since Oliver was around could have changed quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a question, actually. If this, let's say, attitude persists, like if this is a constant source of conflict that Oliver encounters, or more than likely Miria and Daemon encounter, will that change Oliver's view of Ironwood, or will that just be sort of something that's incidental, that just it's a few bad eggs sort of excuse?
Well, absolutely, it would, and that's already an anxiety. We'll hit a moment later on in the scene that we can talk about then that I can kind of point to. But there's already anxiety that his father, even though he's glad that they're reconnecting in some level, even though his father's mind is sort of slipping away, but he doesn't have the best perspective on his father as a lord of the house. He thinks that his father has severely weakened House Ironwood. It's made it much more complacent and subservient to Martell and these Targaryen forces coming in and taking up more and more interest in Dorne. That's a political perspective he's had in his entire life. And that's one thing that if he were to affect House Ironwood, he would want to affect that change. But this is different, though. This is different than that, because this is just straight up racism. That's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And if that attitude is prevalent throughout the army, then that might be a problem that he can't solve. I think his hopes right now is that, and he's a very idealistic person. His hope is, I can go in, I can run this army, we can deal with this very tricky political situation, win a fight, show that we can do the right thing, and they'll see what good leadership looks like, and then we can start to work on the house. That's his idea, but his idealism has not always proven very successful in the past.
Oh, for sure. And as they have that conversation later on, Maria is definitely on board with, we gotta fix this because this isn't right. But after the fight is done, Daemon knocks out one of the guards, and it's basically like, that's enough. And Maria she steps forward and she's like, that's enough, in her tiny little temper tantrum, and she gets Daemon to the maester because Daemon like went over on her ankle. She took a good couple like rib shots, like she's busted up. And so they go to the maester's tower, or the maester's sort of area, and she gets looked at because she gets healed up. Basically she's going to be off her feet for a day. It's like a day's worth of healing, because Sam did say, you can have her around, but her healing will take longer, or, have her strictly confined to bed for a day and then you're done. And I was like, no, we'll have her, Maria was like, no, you will rest. She's flexing that little lady sort of in control. While there, Daemon's like, get rid of the maester. And Maria's like, okay. And the first thing she thinks of is like, I might need to send a letter. And Daemon's like, no, wrong place. And Maria's like, okay, no, wait, it's fine, we can work with this. And so they have this whole conversation with like eyebrow wiggles, eye tilts, head shakes. And Maria takes the maester up to the rookery and like fast talks him, like bamboozles him with like nonsense trivial speech. And Daemon follows them. And as Maria fast talks the maester, gets him to go back downstairs, Daemon doesn't follow. And we then cut back to Oliver as a single raven leaves Castle Ironwood, and Miria is leaving the front door escorted by the maester. So Oliver's like, oh my god, I heard what happened, are you okay? And she's like, yes. Daemon isn't. And she is so snippy and short. She's still maintaining like politeness. She's still maintaining that sort of ladylike facade, but there is definitely, you could tell definitely like she is angry on the inside. And Oliver's like, do you want to go sort this out now? She's like, it can wait. Because she's flexing that real like teenage sass. When a teenager thinks they're really clever and they're just like obnoxious and you just want to be like, you little shit. But they do discuss Oliver leaving to go capture Blackmont, and Oliver like says, I will not make this decision for you. Are you coming with me or are you not? Which again, Oliver is not dictating Maria's life to her, which is part of the thing we had spoken about previously, and he sees and recognizes that she is a person. And she says, I can't go with you. Which is terrible, like, tactically, right? Splitting them up again is such a bad idea. It is the worst idea in the world, because now I'm all alone in this nest of vipers. Oliver's on his own in the fucking mountains. But Maria couldn't go with Oliver because she would see that as a betrayal. You know, she couldn't face her uncle marching up to him with an army behind her and her God's father. Like, it would be way too much. Like, it would, and like optics wise, her uncle, like, could you imagine seeing that? You know, he'd just let them go and then they've come back with a fucking army.
And I don't know that she would have been safer go like, it's kind of a lose-lose for Miria. I like the choice that she made because she had just promised to Daemon that she was going to protect her. And that's the, you know, in whatever capacity she's capable of, that's what she's going to do. And Oliver, you know, having kind of risen himself up from being lowered to nothing by his bootstraps, believes very strongly in self-will and independence, freedom. And so beyond just the deal that he made with Miria, he's, you know, very committed to her being the person she wants to be and making her own decisions. And in this, I think both in the earlier scene, but especially in these couple of scenes at the end, he sees her be stronger than I think he's seen her be before. Knew that she was strong to survive, you know, some of the trials that she'd been through, but she kind of scares him at the end a little bit, because he can see, you know, he can see what she's not saying, and there's a lot that she wasn't saying in the last couple of months.
Yeah, absolutely. And so they make this bargain that he will get Blackmont, she will stay. And he says, you know, maybe you can find out what's going on here, you know, because I think Oliver knows that Mary is canny, knows that she's savvy, and maybe has a different perspective. And as well, not being of, you know, she's not blood family there, then she might get another insight into what's going on. Like, the lines are blurry because Oliver is their son, right? There's the emotional thing that's going to interfere there. So Miria can be like, whoop, and do her thing and try and figure out what's going on. And then they go to Mama and Papa Ironwood, and they're like, all right, sort this out. And Papa Ironwood is like, sorry it happened, but I'm not going to do anything about it. And Miria's like, excuse me? What? Because, like earlier, Miria staying there, Daemon staying there, Oliver staying there, they are under Lord and Lady Ironwood's protection, like the right of hospitality. They should be protected by those guards, not accosted by them. So Miria is like hugely offended. But yeah, Lord Ironwood is like, you can't punish these men, Oliver. They're under your command now. If you start out punishing them straight away, they won't respect you. Which is like up there on one of the shittiest takes you can have.
It's pretty high, but I think there's a truth to it too. And Oliver knows that truth from fighting and serving in the army for so long. In his mind, there's when he says that, his first reaction is, yeah, I know. She didn't die. Nobody died. This was a fight. It wasn't right. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's just a couple of bloodied noses. And so Oliver, you know, he has a very narrow idea of what's right and what's wrong. But having served in the army, he also knows that you have to make allowances, right? When an army goes into a city, bad things happen. When they go into a town, bad things happen. And you can try to keep those things from happening, and you can try to bring justice where possible. But you also, in war, have to make allowances. But when he looks down at Miria and she's just stone face, it's actually a challenge for Oliver. You know, I had this internal thought when we were doing that scene where Oliver's like, you know what, she's right. I have to do better than I've done in the past. So even if it's going to make me less popular, at least, you know, we're going to do what's right here.
I think definitely it was Miria's the young idealist, right? She's the one with all these fresh ideas, like, I'm going to be better than everybody else. No one ever going to suffer under my protection. I'm going to be real good and all this stuff. And Oliver, you know, he is an idealist. He sees the good and he wants the good, but he also understands how things work. So he understood that if you did straight away punish these guards for what was just a brief, like, punch up in the gardens, probably not going to reflect well on the men. And then you've got Lord Ironwood, who's just outwardly saying it. And Oliver's kind of straddling that line between, I understand, Father, yes, you're right, but also, oh God, this child is furious. We need to do something. And also, yeah, that does fucking suck. This is not right. And
Yeah,
so, oh, go on.
Well,
No.
it's interesting how in this episode we all, to a certain extent, and this has just been sort of what I've been able to parse together thematically from the group, we all in certain ways have characters, at least during this session, who suffer from ideologies that do not function properly, like at least in the current point in the drama. Whereas Miria has this idealism that I will not allow this to continue. When I am in power, I will do my utmost to, you know, overturn or otherwise affect this sort of system. Oliver as well has this idealism where, again, it's sort of like in being compromised on the daily almost because of devotion to Yronwood, devotion to Greenmont, devotion to Miria, devotion to all these other sorts of things. And Symon, to a similar degree, has an ideal sort of view of the situation, of what should be happening, what steps need to be taken, and how they can be achieved in disadvantaging Lord Peak, elevating those voices that are trying to either make peace or otherwise get there. And each of us has hit stumbling blocks. Some of them have been faced alone with Symon and the dinner and whatnot. But even when facing them together, it's like, oh, we've got a problem here. We've got a few problems here. So I just thought it was very interesting for this trio to be lumped into one session.
I feel like this was a really good episode for really hammering home what each of us believed in.
Mm-hmm.
It was really like, because I mean, we have kind of seen it before, but nothing really as blatant as this episode. And I feel like for Miria especially, she has really got time to focus now on who she is and what she believes in. Because season 1, she was being carried along with all this stuff and she was just surviving. Season 2 is Miria going, actually, no, this is what I believe in. This is what I'm going to do. And then after the conversation with Lord and Lady Ironwood, and it's agreed that the men will be punished after Oliver gets back. So he has his little skirmish, has the men, then he'll sort them out. Miria is somewhat appeased by this, knowing a punishment is coming, but, you know, there's still a part of her that's still very young, that's like, something bad happened to me right now, I want them punished for it right now. You know, like, in that youth, there's that, this needs to be fixed now, you know. I think she will come to understand that's probably the best situation to punish them later, even if it's just a stern word, but in her anger right now, she's like, I want their fucking heads.
And she's just come out of, at least most of an extent, captivehood too.
Mm-hmm.
So she hasn't been able to act on what she believes. She's had to hide parts of herself just to survive.
Mm-hmm.
She's had to basically let everyone else dictate all of her actions. And while Yronwood is not the safest place possibly, you know, there are figures like Helena, who's a big question mark, and the men, the arms, the army, the garrison there that are always dangerous, as men with weapons are. There's the Maester, who's a whole other character that we've just met, and there's there's people that she doesn't know, but she does have the ability, at least compared to the past, to figure her own way out through it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I loved about seeing her take a stand for things. She wouldn't have been able to do that at Summer Hall.
Yeah.
Now she can.
100%. And I think that's what I liked most about that scene. That was Miria asserting herself And Oliver was checking in. He's like, is this okay? You know, is this what you want? And she's like, it'll do. It's a good step. And then Oliver says something very interesting in that conversation. He says, you and I, we're gonna make this house a better place. And Miria is like, yes, we will. We're gonna sort this place out. Because, I mean, at that point, she's still angry. But it taps into that whole, she wants to do her best. And, you know, she loves Oliver. She'll do anything for Oliver. She believes in his vision of, you know, making House Ironwood his home again, reclaiming his house. So she's all on board. It was, I think, I really liked that scene, actually. Like, it was only a little scene, but I really, really liked that scene. I really liked the development of Miria and Oliver's relationship in this episode.
Me too.
Well, because it shows that there is a genuine fondness there. It's so much of the, I don't want to say so much of the group's relationships, but a good portion of what's been on display has been filtered through a veneer of like courtly intrigue or personal ambition, to have a moment of solitary tenderness where it's like, yeah, no, I really want to be with you. Like, in that sense of like father and daughter, where there's that relationship of like, I just want to make the world a better place. Yeah, me too. Let's figure it out. Let's go play catch in the yard or something like that.
Yeah.
But instead, you geniuses decide, let's split the party again. Let's lead them off to war, and then, you know, pray and hope that Oliver just comes back. Which,
He'll be fine.
he'll be fine. It'll be great.
I mean, you know, Peak definitely isn't on his way.
Yeah, and it's not like somebody's been trying to stifle it.
Spoiler alert, if Peak shows up, the more the merrier.
Mhm.
All right, so here's something that's important to know about Gormy Peak.
Gormy Peak.
Gormy, yeah.
Gormy
Hey.
Peak and Oliver, in the Blackfyre rebellions, the king, the usurper king, had 3 Blackguard, 3 Kingsguard, 3 of the knights that were the highest in his order, his personal guard and retinue, and that was Gorman Peak, Bittersteel, and Oliver. So Oliver is very familiar with Gorman Peak and Bittersteel. So, you know, if he shows up, that's just more meat shield.
Kill,
I
must kill.
I just can't wait for Oliver to come back. And he's brought Peak with him. And he's like, hey, Miria, we're doing a rebellion again. Do you want in?
You said you wanted to change the world, right?
But, yeah, so their final scene together was the soldiers going out, being super cool with their really unique camouflage and their equipment. It would be nothing Miria had ever seen before, so I think she was like transfixed by this like retinue of just really impressive looking troops. And then there's Oliver on horseback with his helmet, and they're like parting words together are actually pretty succinct. Like, she's like, come back, here's my necklace, I want it back. And Oliver's like, I will be back, you know, I'll come, I look forward to coming back to you. And off he rides, leaving Miria at Ironwood to figure out what the hell's going on there and hopefully not get murdered. And then he's going to go into the mountains to go capture Blackmont and hopefully not get murdered. If these two don't meet up again for like another season, I'm going to be so upset.
Then why did you... Ugh.
Because it made sense in the story, Jason.
I don't care. Just have him be like, just tea time with Miria and Oliver. Like, something. Just some spot of brightness so that we can like forget the fact that one of our players is stuck in Tyrosh under Bittersteel's thumb. That another is literally, you know, experiencing the consequences of blood magic. And yet another is being stupid, just generally. I think the only functioning one is Mara. Maybe.
I don't know. She's made some questionable decisions.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But on that final scene, was there anything else that that like twigged for Oliver in that moment, or anything you would, you know, any parting things with regards to Oliver in that scene?
So Oliver doesn't what Oliver doesn't know is that Horatio married a Martell. He doesn't know, like I know, that happened, that his mother's a big fat liar with a very high deception rating. He doesn't really understand the full medical implications of what's happened to his father. There's a lot that he doesn't know, and I think his idealism has gotten the better of him. He actually thinks that Miria is probably safe here, safer here than anywhere else, maybe even Fox Hollow at the moment. So he feels comfortable that she's safe. He really not that he dismisses what happened with Daemon because it was unacceptable, but she seems fine and just seems like she's a bit banged up, but she'll be okay. He's very familiar with the situation. At least he thinks he's familiar with the situation he's going into and has a sound plan to deal with the vultures and Blackmont. He's very confident right now. That's how he's writing off. I'm less confident, much less confident. But I do hope that off of what Jason said, that maybe we can get the whole gang together for like a wedding or something fun at some point.
I hear funerals are very much something to get the family together.
We can do a 2-for-1.
2-for-1. Combination funeral and wedding.
Wait, hang on. Who's unmarried? Okay, so Miria's unmarried. Oliver and Matsu are getting married. Simon's unmarried. Alfred's unmarried. 4 weddings and a funeral. There we go. We can do it. We can do it.
Draw straws to see who's going to take it.
But yeah, I feel like Miria in that moment she's very, very conflicted because she's really not on board with the Blackmont plan. She does see that as a betrayal. She's scared again in a way because Oliver is the thing she's clung to since he was there. She's throughout all her trauma, Miria has clung to something familiar. So that's why she was so close to Blackmont, is because he was family, he was familiar, he was something in everything that was going on around her. She knew him, she knew he was a constant, he was there. Oliver arrived, Oliver is here, she knows Oliver, she loves Oliver, stick to Oliver. Now he's gone again, and she is alone. But there's a sense of, as I've mentioned all through this episode, this fire in her, and everything that's happened in this session has given her this newfound confidence. So she's feeling like a whole bunch of stuff right now. And a bit of sadness too, because, she doesn't want to see him go, and she's also worried that something might happen in those mountains. She knows that her uncle is probably gonna not go willingly. He's gonna fight, and that means that someone's gonna have to fight him. And she knows Oliver, and she knows that Oliver, would probably try and fight him and not kill him, because any other man stepping forward would just kill Blackmont. And so, 2 people she cares about are probably going to have to fight, and one of them might die, or both of them might die, and that's something that she's also contending with. So as she watches Oliver and his men ride off, she's wrestling with a whole bunch, and then thinking about, oh shit, Daenerys back there, I should go. But as they leave, we cut back once more for a very, very short scene with Symon. As he's walking in Highgarden, he hears a voice like, Symon! And behind him is Lady Tamora Hightower. What a bombshell.
That, I really think next session will be the point where the defenses go down, and if she's not being completely forthright with him, I wouldn't. What's that magic card? Anguished Unmaking. Like that's probably what the future holds for Symon. Just, I really think that he will bear all to her above a lot of other people, which we'll see if that actually happens. We'll see how it plays out, but that was an interesting one to throw in at the end, because the history there is so, like, he already went dumb for her once. Like, we'll see we'll see what happens. Honestly, since I spent that destiny point to make sure that Desmaros didn't see Symon, since I'm running on no destiny points, it's like there's just something's gonna happen. So, because there have been way too many times where he could have been stabbed and he wasn't. And yeah, I don't know.
Big oof for Symon right at the end. And that does bring us to the end of the episode. So we have run over a little bit, but we're just going to quickly grab some questions if there are any. And then we will leave you all to your evenings. So if there's anything in chat you want to speak about or comment on, or a question you would like to ask, please do go for it. We have got like 5 or 10 minutes. Charlie says, could you just not stick with Lady Rowan? She's really cute. Lady of a house.
She's 17. No. Mm-mm.
Your father married a 20-year-old.
And that's still creepy. I don't know. I don't even think that she would. That's like, no, I just don't see it. I don't.
Oh, 18. Matsu was 18. Oops.
Jason, I have a question for you.
Oh, God.
How
Yes.
dare you?
How dare I? What?
Question number 2. Who do you think you are?
Pretty easily, and I don't know. I got nothing. Ask again later. Get the fucking 8-ball out.
Question 3. Hey, what the fuck?
Okay, what the fuck?
Okay, question from Tom.
Mm.
Does Fox Hollow smell or something? Because Symon, Miria, and Oliver are doing everything they can to avoid going back.
What about Tom?
Yeah,
you're
Tom.
projecting.
Yeah, Tom.
Why aren't you going back? What's your excuse?
Fuck you, dude.
There's a boat coming back to Westeros right now. Why aren't you on it?
Yeah.
I think that all because you didn't see this Monday stuff, like secret episode, but I think Fox Hollow would be a bad place to take Miria right now until things are until there's some kind of resolution, some kind of safe path forward for her. That would bring potential threat to her and all of Fox Hollow. So that definitely played a part in that decision making.
Yeah. And just a little behind that scenes there, that was a conversation we had that it's not safe to go back, which is partly why we didn't go, because.
Oh wait, I thought the Lord Peak was a buddy. Like he's there now. Why didn't
It
you?
wasn't
go?
Peak. They were worried about.
Not worried about Peak.
What? Who would you be worried about?
Oh, I don't know.
wonder.
Maybe Prince Maekar and all his men.
What? Why would they go to Fox Hollow? I don't understand.
Well, it's not as if that's where Miria's from.
No.
Because, like, the first places I would have thought to, like, if I was Maekar, was Blackmont, Fox Hollow, because they're their homes. And then you want to do the mountains. So, going back, that's like going back to the scene of the crime. You don't, or it's like robbing a bank with, like, an ID badge visible and then going home.
Just going home.
Robbing a bank, leaving your driver's license on the table, and then going home and having a cup of tea. That's what that would be. And then you act surprised when, like, 2 hours later, the police are like, hello, did you just rob a bank?
What? No.
Although it would be kind of cool if Maekar and his men showed up while Peak and his army and the Tarly armies and all of them were there in Fox Hollow.
Oh my god, could you imagine?
I'm just saying, I just think that would be cool.
Oh yeah, war on our home turf. Just fucking go ahead. Yeah. Great.
Could you imagine though? Like this would never happen because Maekar's a prince, but Maekar himself rocks up and he's like, now what's going on here? Why is there an army on your front garden? Care to explain?
I have some concerns. I've made a list. I hope you don't mind if I were to read them.
What's Symon's excuse for not going home?
Next question. No, his excuse is that he just.
Is it because he knows he doesn't have a leg to stand on until he's got something legal with him?
I think it's his quiet way of admitting that if all really does go to shit, he just goes back or goes away. If he goes to Fox Hollow in the present moment as he is right now. I think even if, if Lana did actually write the letter, she would just say, "Oh, you poor fucker, just get back to Old Town. Just don't do this. What do you, just stop." And I think he's still wanting to try and affect the world. And I don't know if that's a gambit that's going to be sustainable. I don't think it is. And like, if in the next 3 sessions Sam just said, yeah, no, he's either going to be arrested or shanked, I'd be like, yeah, makes sense. Just kind of fits with the character arc at this point, because there's just there really is, he's running on fumes. And I think that if he were to even try to go to Fox Hollow, he would view it as he would view it as just the biggest mistake that he could make. So yeah, for one reason or another, he's made every excuse. It's just
General question about After the Fyre: where on the map would Fox Hollow be? So if you get a map of Westeros, particularly of Dawn and Westeros, if you look at the mountain range between Dawn and the rest of Westeros and of Reach, it's south of Highgarden, kind of in the middle-ish. If you get one that's labeled, find one that has Blackmont, and then just up from Blackmont is where Greenmont is. Yeah, Don's going to do as a screen cap because my directions are terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think, I don't know why I said think so weirdly. Tom. No, I'm not even vocalizing that one. Moving on. I think that's a really good place to end it for tonight, you know? I think that we should call it there. We're scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah. Ain't dealing with Rhodes Scholars anymore. Let's just wrap it up.
All right. So we'll just go around one more time and say who we are, where you can find us. And don't forget to tune into this week's After the Fyre, which is on Thursday at 8 p.m. BST, which is 3 p.m. Nope, 3. That was 4 fingers I held up. 3 p.m. Eastern. On twitch.tv/RPGWebby. This week we will be having, I believe, the other 3, because we haven't been summoned yet.
Well, yeah, no, the casting call hasn't gone out.
Casting call hasn't gone up, but I assume... Oh, sorry, Don, let me give you permission.
Web, get on it.
I assume it will be the other 3. Oh my god, I'm so bad at Twitch. Sorry, 1 second. All right, Jason, who are you? Where can we find you? What are you doing?
Just Jason, please, on Twitter. Nowhere else at the present moment. Pin tweet is going to be changing hopefully within the next week. Got a few projects in the works that are to be announced come September. Pretty good time overall. So yeah, just follow me over there if you want to find out what I'm doing, find out where I'm going, and yeah, nothing too big on the agenda other than maybe another appearance on After the Fyre. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right. Don, who are you? Where can we find you?
I'm Don. You can follow me on Twitter at Donathan Fry, where I post about the games that I play and the things that I write. I'm writing I'm writing a lot of different modules for different publishers right now. I'm about to release my first DM's Guild product here soon. So if you follow me on Twitter, you will get cover art and excerpt on what that's all about here. It'll be releasing within the next couple of weeks. I have on Wednesdays, every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, May Black Roses Bloom, which is my Dark Dragonlance D&D 5th edition campaign. We're getting towards the end of that, and we have a lot of big showdowns with big characters that are very familiar if you know the Dragonlance novels. We've got Tanis Half-Elven and Fist and Dantalus and Lord Soth, and there's a lot of big stuff coming down the pipe there as we get to the end of our campaign. And then I'm just starting work on, and I'll post more about this soon, on an upcoming Dark Sun 5th edition campaign that I'm working on as well, which is
Ooh.
another one of my very favorite settings that hasn't really been adapted to 5th edition yet. So that's what I'm up to recently. But otherwise, I'm looking forward to the next episode of our Game of Thrones campaign a lot. I don't know if it'll be this week or in a couple of weeks or whenever, but I haven't gotten to do a big battle yet with Oliver, and hopefully that's what's coming, a battle sequence. I would love that. I could use a break from all the courtly intrigue, which and it's harder for Oliver. So, but yeah, I had a great time today. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us and for helping me dunk on Jason a bit. I'm kidding. And Simon, because oh my god. But I am Susie, otherwise known as Susanna Grace. You can find me all over the internet at Susanna Grace, and find me here like 3 days a week starting September. Starting September the 4th, you will be able to find me on Encounter Roleplay at 4 p.m. Eastern, which is 9 p.m. BST, for The Broken Crown, which is a Zweihander campaign, which is a grim, gritty, perilous fantasy sort of setting in the midst of a rebellion. Which is, look, it sounds really similar to the Blackfyre Rebellion. It's not. It's based on Osiris and Seth and Horus. It's based on ancient Egyptian myth, right? Like, I'm not ripping off Game of Thrones. It's
legally distinct from and yet similar to the Blackfyre Rebellion.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so beyond that, I have a pin tweet that is actually up to date now. I finally fixed it, so check that out. That's on my Twitter. You will find me in the chat on Thursday for After the Fyre, screaming, and on Twitter. But until then, take care, folks, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.